Hey, Black Belt Dragon here, and I've already announced this on my Scare Masters vlog. I'm going to be doing the top 10 best and worst My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. And for now, I'm starting with the worst. Now, of course, I do have a few things to say before I begin this list.
I can't believe you're doing a top 10 list for that show.
Are you going to do this every time I do something Friendship is Magic related now?
No, but come on. Even I watched the show with you to see if I...
Just because I like it doesn't mean that you have to like it. There are different opinions.
I know that there are different opinions, but even after I watched the first season like I told you before, and there are so many questions already. I have already 20 questions of wondering what on earth did I just saw.
Well, if you have questions, then just look up some answers. It's easy. Go online.
I can't. Yoshi's on the computer again.
Okay, I'll help you out and give you some answers as soon as I'm done, alright?
Thank you. Also, from what I'm hearing, Yoshi wants to be fed again, and you know he has a problem with me feeding him.
Oh, don't worry, I'll feed him later. Also, remember not to let him outside. Remember what happened last time?
Oh, you mean that he put Sakura's house on fire, and then eventually Sakura got so pissed off, and then put a spell on you to hear that favorite song of yours? Oh yeah, that was probably the best 2 weeks of my life, hearing you suffer. But remember, I still say you have to go feed him, alright?
Okay, so back. I'm back. Okay. Few things. First off, I know that the show is not officially over, but I really want to put out a top 10 of what I like so far because there's a ton of episodes I like and a lot and a few I dislike. Also, secondly, when I put out this list of worst, some of these choices you're going to be very surprised about because they're considered good episodes. But you know, it's all opinion based. It's my list and I'm putting it out. So, as further ado, let's put on the top 10 worst My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. Putting your hoof down. Now, I also want to say that few of these choices so far are kind of obvious choices. Now, of course, I think putting your hoof down for me is, I pretty much was a lot of people's reaction when I saw this. I did not like that Fluttershy was so out of character, and, it felt kind of mean-spirited in a way, and there's just a lot of pain going on in this episode. Like, I think that scene where Fluttershy just pretty much told off her friends is probably one of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever seen. I mean, yeah, eventually she apologizes, but it's just really bad. Of course, this is also one of those episodes where people start to notice that Angel Bunny is probably not a very nice character, even though he's nice in certain scenes, but most people just want him gone for many reasons. And this episode is pretty much just like stupidity on the biggest low. And yeah, it shows. I have nothing much to say. It's just, kind of bad, but it's not the worst. There are far more worse that I would like to put out. Okay, next one. Griffon the Brush Off. Now, This episode, I kind of have a little bit more detail to say about it. I mean, okay, getting to the plot. The episode is about this Griffon known as Gilda, who was Rainbow Dash's old friend who comes to visit while Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie were pretty much pulling pranks. And this is kind of like comedy pranking episode, which kind of had a lot of potential that it could work. But what happens is that Gilda, she doesn't want Rainbow Dash hanging out with Pinkie Pie anymore, and then Pinkie Pie finds out that Gilda is not as nice as she should be. So, of course, being Pinkie Pie, she kind of throws a party and then pulls, like, somehow Gilda thinks that she's pulling the pranks on the party, but then it ends up becoming Rainbow Dash. Then Rainbow Dash finally knows Gilda for what she is, and pretty much just tells her to leave. And yeah, but what I don't like about this episode is that the point that, I mean, the beginning of the episode I did actually like. I like the pranks, kind of, in a way. I mean, I like the fun tone, and it's kind of fun to see these characters interact with each other. But what I didn't like is that they kind of put off like Gilda as pretty much one-dimensional. This was before the Treasure of Griffinstone, obviously. But what I don't like about this episode is that, in a way, I kind of found Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash the bad guys, in a way. I kind of because I was in a situation like this one time, meeting an old friend, new friend, can't get along, but I felt that there was a way that they could have solved this problem for them to both, for both of them to be friends, and, we can all be friends. Like, I kind of had, like, a situation like this, and it worked out fine. But with this episode, it didn't work out that great, I thought they would go in a much more mature, kind of way they could handle this episode, but this was mostly comedy. And I felt in a sense, I kind of felt really bad for Gilda when she was being pranked at the party. I mean, it's small little pranks in a way. I mean, if they were just small little pranks, just, splatting water, or just, that kind of gags, like paint or something, paint in the telescope, that happened to Rainbow Dash in this episode. It would have been fine if they were simple pranks, but some of these pranks are actually kind of painful when you put it into reality. I mean, just hot salsa after she was, having, really? Really, Rainbow Dash? Really? I mean, that was kind of really mean. And I also felt that Rainbow Dash was very ignorant in a way. I don't know how she didn't manage to catch Gilda in this act. I mean, she was literally above the skies. And we clearly see that she knows how to look down and see things from pretty far off. So I really, wondered how come that didn't happen. And also Pinkie Pie, she should have just told Rainbow Dash. It would have been a much more better sense instead of throwing a party. But it's the character. And I felt that Twilight and Applejack were kind of pointless. I don't understand why were they even in this episode in the first place. I guess because this was kind of the episode where Twilight had to write lessons, at the time. So pretty much I kind of have this, problem. I have this problem. I felt like it was really mean-spirited. It wasn't handled that well, and the message itself, I mean, in a way it's good, but I don't know if it was, I don't think it was executed well in a way. It's just my personal opinion. Okay, on to the next one. Just for sidekicks. Now, yeah, it's kind of obvious. It's a Spike episode. Just for sidekicks. The first time I saw this episode, I didn't mind it, but then after the second time, I kind of understand what the hatred is, because I didn't even know, I kind of went into the fandom kind of a little, around 2012, and, the season's already been passing so far, and when I saw this episode, I thought it was fine, but then I started looking at people's reaction to this episode and what they thought of it. And, I start to look at it again, and I just realize, wow, there's a lot to hate in this episode. Like, Spike not doing his responsibility, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders kind of being pointless in this entire episode. I think they were just thrown in at the last minute for some reason, I guess. I don't know why. I felt that Angel Bunny was really, in a way, in a sense, he was just trying to teach Spike a lesson, but then, when you think about it, there could have been another way he could have just done this. And Spike losing his gems every time, is funny in a sense, but, it's very, very, it doesn't kind of make any sense. And you would think that, after he did something good and realized his faults, he would get rewarded in the end. But no, he still doesn't manage to make his cake. This weird diamond crystal gem cake, I don't know. I just felt that, even though this episode is supposed to connect with games ponies play, it doesn't somehow connect it too well, because I actually did find some small faults into this episode. Some parts you might look at, when you look at a scene, they kind of you can see that something's a little different from the episode you saw before. So I just didn't felt that it was good in a sense, and yeah, pretty much is kind of obvious. Okay, on to the next one. Power ponies. Now, you already have an amazing concept right here. You have an incredible concept. The characters parodying the Power Rangers. Oh my gosh. This is gonna be awesome. It's not even the Power Rangers. I don't even think there's anything Power Rangers related in this entire episode. Nothing Power Rangers related. I tried to find something. There's no big robot. There's no corny lines. There's nothing really resembling the Power Rangers. I think that people got confused, and this is more something of the Avengers. And that would be cool too if they would do it right. This episode involves Spike getting some kind of magical comic that sucks all of their friends, all of his friends, the ponies, into the comic book, and they meet this crazy villain that I think is supposed to be a mixture of that woman from Powerpuff Girls and Poison Ivy, I think. I have no idea. But when I saw this, it's they're kind of doing a job of superhero things, but there's nothing really funny about it in a way. They're taking this awfully seriously, and I think the only memorable scene in that entire episode is Fluttershy turning into the Hulk. That's pretty much the most memorable thing I can remember in that episode. And it's so strange because even something like Animaniacs did an amazing job trying to parody the Power Rangers. If you've seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. But then you don't think that they're doing so well with the Avengers parody either. I don't know if I've somehow seen this, but there was actually Sesame Street parodied the Avengers and calling them the Vegetarians. I don't remember the name, but it was one of those Cookie Monster Oscar shorts. I think. But what happened, I saw this, and they did an amazing job parodying the Avengers. It's sad in a way that a preschool kids show did a much more better parody of the Avengers than a show for a family show. that's kind of sad in a way. It's really, really, really sad. And I just can't understand why. I can't understand why that happened. I guess, I guess it didn't work out. Yeah, so I don't like this episode because it was probably one of the worst parodies of Power Rangers and Avengers. I didn't like the powers that much. They weren't that unique. Some of the jokes don't work, and the only memorable scene, like I said before, is Fluttershy turning into the Hulk, and that's pretty much it. And I don't feel like Spike has learned anything from this episode. So yeah, I felt like it was kind of a waste. Next one. Simple ways. Okay. Where do I begin? Rarity meets this guy she has a crush on for a long time, and then the guy ends up falling for Applejack, and so Rarity tries to be more like Applejack in a most ridiculous way possible, and Applejack tries to do the same thing, being Rarity, and I don't know if I can continue. Like, I don't know. It just... The reason why I hate this episode so... like, this is, like, it's not funny good. It's funny bad. It's like, this is, like, really, really funny bad. Like, in a way, in a sense, this episode is a joy to watch, which could consider, like, it's so bad it's good. But in a way, I don't know how, it's kind of confusing. Like, I find some parts very funny, but then there are, like, most parts which are completely ridiculous, completely, like, awful. Like, that scene with Applejack. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that scene with Applejack. Like, well, for one thing, I do have to say that's pretty obvious. It's a Rarity episode, and I'm not a huge fan of Rarity episodes. Like, I never feel like Rarity learns anything throughout these episodes, and I've already brought that out in my Canterlot Boutique review. But what do I have to say about this certain episode? Like, I feel like it's one of those episodes where you just wonder when, like, what is going to happen after, the main six, are they going to have, like, a kind of, they're going to go back to their old lives, or, like, this is, like, during, like, the ending peak, like, you're kind of imagining, are these characters going to have some kind of life after after their whole adventure is over? Like, you can say that the adventure has just begun, in a way. Like, Twilight is the princess of friendship, like, so, yeah, I'm just, like, people have been wondering, like, how shippers try to, like, ship characters, with the main six, or even thinking that the main six are lesbians. Well, in a way, in a sense, like, I try to figure out, like, who will they end up with by the end of the entire episode. And I thought this was going to be one of those episodes where probably Rarity was going to find someone, and then, it's all just a big joke, I just don't understand why they put these out. There's always, like, I don't know, for some reason there's not really a good love episode. Like, even, like, the Heartswarming Eve episode wasn't that great. Obviously, I know that's terrible. That episode's so friggin' terrible. Like, but in this certain episode, Simple Ways, I don't feel like much was accomplished. I mean, all Rarity had to do was just finish some kind of event that she was chosen for, but she gets distracted by this traveling writer that somehow is looking for something different and trying to have something to write about, I guess, and then, like Applejack comes into the picture and it's all this big mess of who's gonna get them, even though that Applejack knows he doesn't want him. Like, it's just nuts in a way. In a way, this episode has funny moments, but most of the time I just didn't felt the writing was that great. And like that scene with Applejack and Rarity trying to outwit each other's and making fun of each other, I don't know, I just found that very painful in a way. Like, in a way I laughed in the inside, but like, it's just painful to watch. In my personal way, it's just really painful just to watch. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. Okay, on to the next one, and now we're into the point of territory where get ready for the hate mail. Yeah, just get ready. Put your hands on the keyboards. You would not believe what I've picked next. Twilight's Kingdom. Wait.
197, 2 degrees west by 44.50177 degrees north. Locked and loaded.
Let me explain. Very, very slowly. Before you start aiming fire at me. At first, I had no problem with this episode. I thought it was fine the first time I saw it. You know, this two-parter, I mean, I loved what they did. I felt that it was well written in a way. I felt that this episode, did some good parodies. And, in a way, in a sense, it's fun. But the second time I looked at this two-parter, I start to realize that there's really nothing that I haven't seen before. Let me explain. Okay, so this episode, we've all know this, like, it's about Twilight trying to find her path. She feels like she's doing nothing as the new princess. And then, by the end, she finds out that she's the princess of friendship. Then there's this villain, T-Rex, which from the previous series, like, the previous generations, he's now put in this generation. We see that T-Rex wants to take over, the world and all of Equestria. T-Rex wants to take over all of Equestria, and so yeah, we get this kind of like where Twilight tries to figure out like how is she going to get the final key and what's it going to do to help her out. T-Rex starts getting Discord on his side. Discord betrays his friends and all of Ponyville. Then Twilight gets all of the princess's magic. While T-Rex tries to find Twilight, there's this kind of battle. Twilight loses her home and then gets a new home by the end. There's this epic battle. Then by the end, they rainbowfy, all her and her friends rainbowfy. They destroy T-Rex, and there's this big end song, Whippity-Doo, New Castle. Like, yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, okay, let me give you but then, like I said, when I saw it the second time, like, I like the idea that, in a sense, people thought this was going to be the final season and the final episode of the show. In a sense, it could have worked. But then you start to realize there are a few things that, were unsolved. Like, obviously, this was the time when before, we didn't even know if the cutie mark crusaders were going to get their cutie marks. To my personal opinion, like, I still want to know if Spike is ever going to find out who he is, as a dragon, like, what kind of dragon is he, like, where did he come from, I think those are answers I like to get. And, in a sense, like, what they didn't explain this at the time, but, like, exactly what is the, like I said before, at the time when I saw this, like, what was the job of the Princess of Friendship? Like, they never really explained that much. And also the cock tease shipping. Like, that end scene where Discord gives Celestia flowers, I'm just like, really? Like, you're not going to go anywhere with that? That's it? Yeah. And then there's, like, the DBZ parody, and everyone loved that scene. It would be amazing if I didn't see that so many times before. Like, I've seen a lot of shows do a DBZ parody. There are certain shows that I think people have never heard of, but there were like, okay, yeah, but I've seen a bunch of shows do a DBZ parody, so this is nothing new to me. And you might be saying, oh, but this is My Little Pony, and somehow they did a DBZ parody. It's so, like, you've never seen that before? I mean, in a sense, I've never seen that before. Obviously, it's good. I mean, it's done well, but I don't know, maybe it's because I've seen, like, a lot of movies, and a lot of shows. Like, I've seen a lot of them, and there are a bunch of them who's done the DBZ parody. The Matrix did it. Codename Kids Next Door did it. Even I think certain preschool shows even did it just for a short moment. I've actually seen them. I can't remember their names though. But like even there's this one show where they do a parody of James Bond. But like I said before, like, I've seen stuff like this before, and maybe it's because, like, I've seen so much of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and even Dragon Ball Super. I'm really kind of used to the seeing animated battles, unless they try something different. I mean, in a sense, I've never really seen, like, a battle done with comedy before, like a mixture of comedy with the battle. It would have been funny, in the sense that there could have been some kind of jokes put in that battle, but and the one thing I don't like about the battle is that they never really physically hurt each other. There's just like these blasts of lightning shooting their beams of magic, and that's it. There's explosions and stuff, but like they never really physically beat each other up, and that was one of the best parts of DBZ. And I felt that should have been done in a way. I mean, how awesome would be that? A physical battle with Twilight and T-Reg. That would have been, like, I mean, obviously it would have been kind of too, adult, too much for kids, but, like, come on. We've grew up with DBZ before, so I think maybe they would have gotten used to it. Okay, another thing, many people would think that, that scene in the end of, where they blast T-Rex after they get the rainbow powers, like, you might say it's kind of Deus Machina. At first I thought that, but then you start to realize that, they literally, put this up, like, they literally timed this to this point, like, we saw the chest, like, they would give this powers. Every single episode, like, I think almost every episode of Season 4, they would put parts where the main six would get each piece of the key, and they've been building this up till this episode. So, in a way, it's not a Deus Machina. But, when you really think about it, why would they need this chest? Like, why would they leave this, like, little chest in the first place? Like, why couldn't this, like, it's kind of a way, just like a last minute kind of deal. Like, in a sense, like, in a sense, like, this chest, like, if it, like, this little crystal chest that they tried to open, all the keys, like, I felt that the chest was pretty much just put in the last minute. Like, it was just made up in the last minute. Like, imagine, like, when you really think about it, imagine if T-Rex never existed. What was the chest? What was the point of the chest anyway? I mean, the chest was only there just so they can battle T-Rex. That's it. Like, think about it. Imagine if T-Rex never was there, but the chest was there. What was the point of them having the chest? Just so Twilight can have her, new house? Like, that's another thing, when you really think about it. Like, and also, what if they didn't have the chest? What if they didn't have the chest? What if they couldn't stop T-Rex and just have the elements of harmony? Oh, too bad. It's just because I felt that T-Rex and that chest somehow were put into the last minute. And even in the beginning of season 4, like, I think they put that chest and, its excuse at the last minute. Obviously they had to think of something for Princess Twilight Sparkle. So yeah, in a way, I do actually like that episode. It makes sense in a way, but like, when you really think about it, it's the chest and T-Rex that only make this episode. If these never existed, what would the point of the episode really put out? That's when you really think about it, because when you write that in, you can't just have like little problems like. It's kind of like, I think Nostalgia Critic kind of put this out. Why does there need to be a Matrix in the first place? Like, yeah, now, when you think about it, what was the point of that chest or even T-Rex if they never happened? They had to come up with something. Like, that's kind of the point. There's like these little issues like that somehow makes this episode wonder, like, if it makes any sense. But, like, I don't necessarily despise this episode. I just feel like I don't like it in a sense, and I just kind of hated when people thought this was going to be the finale. Then they're like, no, hoping it's not the finale, because there's so much more they could do, and thank gosh they just moved on to another season, because, I just didn't felt like it would end well in a certain way. I didn't feel Twilight learned much of anything. That chest and T-Rex, like, I feel like were just put into the last minute just to make a plot, just to make something happen, just for T-Rex to have that castle. I mean, just for Twilight to have that castle. Okay, on to the next one. And yeah, we're now getting into the territory of Hope You Don't Hate Me. Rarity investigates. Okay, I kind of already made a vlog about this, and I already brought out so much of my hatred towards this episode. And this is pretty much one recent episode. One of the recent episodes that happened this season. Rarity investigates, in a sense. I don't think it's terrible. I like it I don't think it's horrible in a way. Like, yeah, it's kind of confusing how I'm putting this as the worst, but like, we're in the middle right now. Like I said, in a way, I kind of do hate this episode. Like, I like that they did so much with the film noir, and Rarity, I really liked her, her detective skills in this episode, if they were explained. And I felt that Rainbow Dash was really mean-spirited, like really, really selfish, that she only cared about herself. I hated the Wonderbolts in this episode. They felt pretty much the same. And I felt that the culprit was pretty much just very one-dimensional and, didn't, like, do anything in this episode. I mean, it was obvious from the beginning of, like, who the culprit was anyway. It's pretty dang obvious, and I felt the episode was very obvious. I didn't like much of the writing. The film noir in this episode, like, I love the black and white. It looks amazing, and I love what they tried to solve this case. It was just good, but I just felt like it wasn't executed well by the end. I felt like there was, like, no lesson in this episode whatsoever. If you really want to know more, just go to my Rarity Investigates vlog. You'll pretty much know more detail, but like I said, not one of my favorite episodes. Okay, alright, we're getting to the pinpoint. Let's get to number 3. It's the boiling point here. Return of Harmony Part 1. Yes, I know. Discord, John Delancey, is amazing. The first time he ever appeared, he does a great performance. But what I don't like about this episode, and you might be finding it weird, wait, part 1? What about part 2? They're kind of together. Well, for some weird reason, I don't like part 1 and I like part 2. I felt that part 2 was the best part of the entire two-parter. And, you know, in a sense, I did like that they did this Star Wars kind of ending parody, even having the same music, I think, by the end credits. But in Return to Harmony, the part 1, like, I didn't like how it started. Like, for one thing, why were the class there? Like, why was Cheerly there in the first place? Like, they were just walking around and then, you know, we never see them again. We never see them again. Like, they were, oh yeah, they were very useful to the plot. And then Discord comes free. You know, Discord, John Delancey's very funny. He does a job performance as Discord, and I think he did, like, he just loved every moment. In a sense, I felt like he loved every moment playing as that character, you know, trying to manipulate the ponies. But, like, I felt like when they got into the labyrinth, which I do want to explain, I think it's a maze, not a labyrinth. In a sense, I feel like it's a maze. I don't see the labyrinth part. I mean, I know what a labyrinth is, and a maze. I can tell the difference. But I just felt that, when they were going inside and we see these characters get caught into the web of lies that Discord is trying to put into them, and in a sense, I would like this if it was done well. I felt this was done really badly. Like, the way they get hypnotized is so easy. I mean, Applejack gets, you know, hypnotized for just talking to a bush, and the second hypnotized when Pinkie Pie just is afraid of balloons. Okay, try to make sense out of that. And Rarity gets hypnotized just because she wants crystals on the wall. Doesn't she have so many gems in her store? Like, or her boutique? Why on earth does she need more? I mean, she knows where they are. She could have easily, like, you know, and I felt the way that Rainbow Dash, oh my gosh, don't look into the mirror. You really have to look in the mirror? I mean, it's so obviously a trap. It's so obviously a trap. Why'd you look at the mirror? Why? And Fluttershy. Oh, she's brainwashed. You're done for. These are the laziest heroes I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh my god, it's so bad. I don't know, but, and, you know, in a sense it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it's just awful. Like, here's the thing. I don't know, maybe it's because I hate this trope of being, characters being mind washed or something, or being brainwashed by, you know, by an evil villain, you know, being brainwashed, but they just got brainwashed so easily. It was so easy just to brainwash them. I mean, here's the thing, in, like, something like serious tone, if it was taking it in a serious tone, I think it would have been better if the villain injured themselves first, like, injure the characters, and then hypnotize them. You know, obviously that would kind of be, in a way, too dark, but it would have been more real. Like, it would have made more sense. You know, because really, just because you're just looking into a fountain, like, or just looking into a mirror, or just, you know, seeing this kind of weird Twilight Zone kind of, what happened? Like, you know, is it really easy just to manipulate these characters? I guess in the later season they learned their lesson, but I don't know. I just felt it didn't work out. Though the performance of John Delancey's Discord, like I said, is really good, I still felt that the characters did a well done job, but yeah, it just felt really stupid and ridiculous. On to number 2. A Canterlot Boutique. Now, this is kind of like Return to the Harmony, where I kind of liked the second part better than the first part, but in a sense, this is really like one of the... I highly don't like this episode because of that one scene, and I just didn't felt like, I don't know what it is, but these writers, I don't know what they don't do, but they don't do love correctly. Like, they can't write love stories. I mean, what do we know about Cadence and Shining Armor's relationship in this episode? What do we know? And the comic doesn't count. It's separate. Like, we don't find any reason why these characters are in love. We don't even know. And we have these, like, pointless, like, kind of songs in a way, except the ones where Cadence is singing just to get back to Shining Armor. That actually song was very important in a way, but and I felt like, okay, let me just get to the basic point. Twilight is invited to her brother's wedding. Then her brother finds out, then Twilight finds out her brother's marrying Cadence, who was once her babysitter. And so then Cadence, turns out to be a jerk in the first part, but then we find out in part 2 that she's not who she is. She's Chrysalis, like, I think that's the character's name, Chrysalis. She's one of the villains of the show, and we find out Cadence is trapped somewhere where Twilight finds her after she gets kidnapped by Chrysalis and sent to this kind of crystallized world. And so she finally finds Cadence and, tries to get her back to Shining Armor. Eventually, Shining Armor and Cadence destroy Chrysalis, taking her out with the power of love. I'm fine. Okay. So then, so what do I hate about this episode? Well, for one thing, I think one personal scene, the scene where Shining Armor tells off Twilight is probably one of the most mean-spirited, one of the most heartless scenes. I mean, obviously, he was defending his rights. No problem with that. But by the end, her friends leave her in an angry manner. That makes no sense whatsoever. What do they have to be, angry at Twilight about? She was confirming with her brother about a situation. It's none of their business. I mean, maybe in a way I can understand Princess Celestia because, family, she's, she's Cadence's family, it's understandable in a way, I think, but, Twilight was her prize student, and knowing that, literally she did nothing wrong, but just told her brother that what she thinks. She never said, don't marry her. I don't think that's what she said. She just had her own kind of, in a sense, I kind of have been in a situation like this, but I don't think it would go that far. I mean, usually we would just talk about it, just talk about, like, maybe it's not a problem, maybe we can just get along, and Twilight's just trying to look out for her brother. It's kind of in a sense of just how families are, just trying to look out for each other. They're families. If it was a friend, I think it would be a completely different story and would work, but these are family members. Like, Twilight knowing to be a smart pony, I think, and I don't think there was a point where she had lied about something with Shining Armor, but obviously Shining Armor's being manipulated by Chrysalis's, powers, but it just, I mean, Spike is the only considerate one. He mostly just leaves not angry, but disappointed. Makes perfect sense. I felt like that's what her friend's look should have been. Not angry. This is just... I just didn't feel like they did the right thing of leaving her. And I felt they were kind of really ignorant in this episode, being prepared for a wedding and stuff, even though that they're friends, it's her brother's, friend, in problem. They're the one, she's the one having a problem, and they don't notice that she's being upset about this at all. They, literally, they're just so ignorant dealing with, oh, we're going to be bridesmaids, oh, we're going to be having this, we're going to be having playful. What friends are these? Really, what friends are these? Obviously, looking at her face, knowing how she's kind of disappointed and kind of worried, don't you think there would have been a point of talk or anything trying to figure this out? I mean, by the end of part 2, they do manage to forgive her or something, or realize their faults. And there's this kind of scene where I literally think they should have played the Mortal Kombat theme. That was really cool. And yeah, in a way it's kind of corny that the power of love was to take down Chrysalis, Gaydon's in shining armor. I felt that and of course, Rarity being by the end of the episode, we have this song, then, Cadence throws the bouquet, Rarity, element of generosity, okay. I don't know, in a sense, there are good things in this episode, very small good things, but most of it, I just felt it was very painful, in a sense, mean-spirited. In a sense, mean-spirited. It didn't felt like nothing just felt real, in a way. I don't know, it just didn't work out for me. Okay, we're on to number 1, and boy, do I have a lot to hate. And the number 1, in my personal opinion, the worst My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode. Show Stoppers. Why does this episode exist? I don't even know if I can put myself in words about this awful episode. This terrible, terrible, terrible episode. And I love the Cutie Mark Crusaders. They are one of the best characters I've ever seen. Handled way more than the Powerpuff Girls. Handled, better personality, have better adventures, and it's just overall very fun and good characters. And this episode makes them completely stupid. The writing is bad. The jokes don't work. And that rock and roll ending. I'll do my best to try to not get angry about this. This episode is about the Cutie Mark Crusaders trying to get their cutie marks. Applejack builds them a treehouse. We find out what their destinies could have been. And yeah, what could have been. Apple Bloom as a carpenter, Scootaloo as a streamist, and Sweetie Belle as a singer. And it's pretty obvious of what they are. And they figure it out. But they just ignore it and just move on. Okay. And then Cheerily, tells them that there's this talent show that they could enter. Maybe they'll find their destinies. So what do? They decide to have a rock and roll band, which could have been good if they were going to sing well. And then we get these unfunny jokes of just trying to figure out, thinking that Scootaloo can dance because that's what she does best. Apple Bloom could probably, make the decorations and the sets, and Sweetie Belle is the one who could sing. Would have been fine, but no, they decide to switch and to see how differently it could be. Okay. And then, by the end of the episode, they do this talent show where, in a sense, it could have been funny if my ears weren't bleeding through their horrible, horrible, horrible singing. And it's weird because don't they know how to sing? Don't they know how to sing? I mean, by season 5, they sing a song and all of them sing. And why did they decide not to sing in this episode? Like, horribly. And, one of them is an amazing singer. Amazing. And by the end, Twilight tells them that maybe they've learned the lesson, that maybe they should try their best to find their destinies and try to do what they can do that's good. And they realize that at first, and then by the end, maybe their best is comedy. Maybe they should do comedy. And Twilight pretty much puts out, yeah, one day they'll learn. That is just fun. I hate this episode so much. It's the worst episode I've seen so far. Rarity Investigate was actually close. And actually, Canterlot Wedding was known to be number 1 at first. But then after seeing this again, gosh, I hate this episode so much. The Cutie Mark Crusaders are one of my favorite characters, but gosh, did they suck in this episode. Thank gosh I hold it in. Okay, so yeah, that's my top 10 worst My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. Now, in part 2, we will get to my top 10 best. The top 10 best. My personal favorite My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. Okay, Black Belt Dragon signing out for now, and I'll see you in the next top 10.